Hello, this is Dr. Anthony Festmeyer, and in this lesson we're going to construct 5 different major scales using the same steps that we used in the previous lesson to construct the C major scale. We will start with the G major scale, and our first step is to notate a diatonic scale. So that's one of every letter name starting on the keynote, G. So here we have G, A, B, C, D, E, and F, so one of every letter name, and then we finish off our scale with the note that we started on, G. The next step is to make these notes conform to the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern for a major scale. Using the piano as a reference, we can examine the distance between each of these pairs of notes to decide if we need to add a sharp or a flat to any of the notes so that they conform to this pattern. If we look at G to A up here on the piano, we can see that from G we move up to a black key, which is a half step, and then up to A, which is another half step, making G to A a whole step, so there's no need for a change. We have the same situation with A to B. A moves up a half step to a black key, and then another half step to B, making A to B a whole step. From B to C, there is no black key, so B to C is a half step, so no change is necessary here. From C to D, we have another whole step with the black key in between, making 2 half steps. Same thing with D to E, a black key in between, making D to E a whole step. Now here from E to F, we want a whole step, but we actually have a half step. Notice that there is no black key in between E and F, so the closest note to E is the F note, making it a half step. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn that F into an F sharp. We're going to keep the F letter name, but we're going to add a sharp to the F, moving it up a half step, making E to F a whole step. Notice that we place a sharp symbol before the F note and that it centers on the line just like the F note. Finally, we need a half step from F sharp to G. Looking here at the piano, we can see that from the black key of F sharp to G is one key, so it's up a half step. So we now have the G major scale. Next, we will notate the D major scale, and we'll follow the same steps. First, we'll notate the diatonic scale starting on D. So here we have D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, so one of each letter name starting on D, and then we cap it off with a D note. Next, we need to follow the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern of a major scale. Using the piano to examine the distance between the notes, we can see that D to E on the piano is a whole step because of the black key in between, making 2 half steps. Next we have E to F. We're looking for a whole step, but E to F is actually a half step with no black key in between. So like with the G major scale, we're going to need to raise that F up to an F sharp to create a whole step from E to F sharp. Notice that the sharp symbol is written right before the F note and centered on the space, just like the note. Next, we need a half step from F sharp to G. We start on F sharp on the piano. We can see that the next key up is G, so it's a half step. Next, from G to A, we need a whole step. Here we have G, a black key in between to A, so 2 half steps makes a whole step, so no changes necessary there. We have the same thing from A to B, A, black key, B, so that's a whole step. B to C, we're looking for a whole step, but B to C is another half step since there is no black key in between. So just like with F to F sharp, we're going to raise the C up to C sharp to make a whole step from B to C sharp. And we place the sharp symbol just before the C to say C sharp. Next we have C sharp to D, which is a half step, and that's what we're looking for. So this is the D major scale. Next, we will notate the A major scale, starting with the diatonic scale on A. So here we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we're capping it off with A, since we're working on the A major scale. Next, we'll follow the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. Using the piano as a reference, we can see that A to B is a whole step because of the black key in between. B to C, however, is a half step, and we're looking for a whole step. So just like with the D major scale, we're going to take that C and we're going to put a sharp in front of it, raising it up to C sharp, making B to C sharp a whole step. Now we have C sharp to D. C sharp to D, black key to white key, is a half step, so no change is necessary. Next we have D to E. D to E is a whole step because of the black key in between, making two half steps. Next, E to F. That is another half step because there is no black key in between, but we need a whole step. Again, just like with the D major scale, we could take that F and raise it up to an F sharp, making a whole step from E to F sharp. Now from F sharp, we need another whole step. Looking up at the piano, F sharp to G is a half step. So to make that a whole step, we're going to raise that G up to the G sharp, so we have a whole step from F sharp to G sharp. Finally, from G sharp to A, we have a half step. So this is the A major scale. Next, we will notate the E major scale, starting with a diatonic scale on E. Here we have E, F, G, A, B, C, and D, one of each letter, capping it off with E. Next, we'll follow the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. From E to F, we need a whole step. Looking here at the piano, we can see the E to F as a half step since there is no black key between the two notes. Just like the other scales that we've examined, if we move the F up to F sharp, we create a whole step from E to F sharp. Next, we need a whole step starting on F sharp. If we start here on F sharp, we can see that a half step takes us to G, another half step takes us to G sharp, therefore it's a whole step from F sharp to G sharp. Next, we need a half step. Starting on that G sharp, we can see that it's a half step up to A. A is the next closest key. A to B, we need a whole step, and that's what we have with the black key in between, creating two half steps. From B to C, we need a whole step, but B to C is a half step with no black key in between. So we're going to raise that C up to a C sharp to create that whole step from B to C sharp. From C sharp, we need another whole step. Looking at the piano, C sharp to D sharp gives us that whole step because C sharp to D is a half and D to D sharp is another half. And finally, we have a half step from D sharp to E. So this is the E major scale. The final major scale that we'll look at in this lesson is the F major scale, and we'll start by notating a diatonic scale on F. So here we have one of every letter, F, G, A, B, C, D, and E, and we cap it off with another F. Next, we'll follow the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. From F to G, we're looking for a whole step, and if we look at the piano, we can see the F, there's a black key in between, moving up to G, making for a whole step. We have the same thing from G to A, G, black key to A is two half steps or a whole step. Then A to B, we're looking for a half step, but A to B is actually a whole step with that black key in between. We need to keep the B note, so we're going to go from A up to B flat to create a half step between those two notes. From B flat to C, we need a whole step, and if we look at the piano, we can see B flat to B is a half, B to C is another half since there's no black key in between B and C. So therefore B flat to C is a whole step. Next we need a whole step from C to D, and that's what we have with the black key in between. Now we need a whole step from D to E. We have the same thing, D, black key for a half step, another half step to E. And then finally we need a half step from E to F, and that's what we already have. E to F is to the closest key since there was no black key in between. So here is the F major scale.